This is a capsule, and we're going to talk now about the election in Bolivia, which was very positive for the right, completely buried mass, which is the movement towards socialism that was supported by Lula, which had Evo Morales and Luis Arce as its main exponents. And the same thing happened that occurred in the United States and in Argentina. When Bolivia realized that the right was growing, they tried to return to power at any cost, did everything they could, and some things they couldn't to return to power, and managed to return to power. Luis Arce, who is left-wing, is from MAS, won Bolivia's election in 2020, but returned in an irresponsible manner. Why? Because what happens now is that decentralized information, the reduction in information costs, the reduction in transaction costs ends up making the state inefficient. Anything that the left-wing president, who bets on big government, tries to do to improve the economy or improve the country's situation only worsens the country's situation. The result is an enormous economic crisis and people moving to the right with great force. It's nothing short of a preview of what we're going to see here in Brazil in 2026. But we need to be careful. There are some lessons in this story. What was the result there? Rodrigo Paz and Tuto Quiroga are going to the runoffs. Tuto Quiroga is the right-wing candidate there, but who actually won, who actually came out ahead, was Rodrigo Paz, which was a surprise. And he's not as right-wing as we're going to show here. This news was suggested by Jolson, Bolsolavista A. Bolsolavo, Peter Continue Talking Sovereignty, and several other people. Thanks to everyone who suggested news on our website, VisaLibertaria.com, and thank you to those watching our video. If you like our content, please leave your like and subscribe to the channel, okay? So, first of all, we need to make it clear that what we have so far are preliminary results. Bolivia's vote counting website hasn't released any official results yet at the time I'm recording this video, okay? So, it's assumed that at some point this will be confirmed, but there's nothing official yet. However, the newspapers in Bolivia are already treating this runoff between Arce and Quiroga as certain, right? So let's understand what's happening here. However, on the other hand, a positive side of this story is that the far left lost. Look at this. This was the room of the MAS party. MAS is the movement towards socialism, which is their PT over there. Their far left over there. It's the party allied with Lula, the party allied with former President Evo Morales, and allied with current President Luis Arce. This is how the MAS vote counting room looked. The people already knew they had lost. They didn't even stay to listen. Even worse, they finished in 4th and 6th place. They had two candidates. They finished in 4th and 6th place in Bolivia's election. Way behind, okay? The top 3 places were from the right. Here, look. Breaking news, Evo Morales left disappears in Bolivia. That's what I'm telling you. That's what will happen here in Brazil. It's what happened in Argentina. It's what happened in the United States. The right is growing. The left is in enormous desperation because they feel they're losing control of the population. They can no longer use those easy catchphrases to control the population because they did that in the era of centralized television, centralized information. Now, with decentralized information, the argument has been elevated, meaning you have to have a better argument to convince people. And the left gets confused in this situation, so they get worried about this. They won't return to power, and they'll do something to get back to power. It happened in the United States, it happened in Argentina, it happened in Brazil, and it happened in Bolivia too. They did everything to get back to power, but then what happens? It's what I tell you. The change happening in the world is much more structural than these people imagine. They think not. They think the right is causing trouble. No, Bolsonaro, the coup plotter, my friend Bolsonaro, is the best option that we have right now. The leftist folks will see that the moment they manage to nullify Bolsonaro, something much worse than Bolsonaro will emerge in the end. There's no chance the people are moving to the right. That's the way. Either we go there in a well-behaved and reasonable manner, within the reasonable and civilized principles of the world, or if the Supreme Court continues insisting on this idea that no, the right is not allowed in Brazil, it's prohibited. If you're right-wing, you're a coup plotter and all that, the right has to be center-left, which is the PSDBB. It can only be center-left, which is the right without any votes. If we continue with this nonsense, it will be something much worse down the road. I hope the shakeup that Trump is causing will solve this problem. Anyway, the left disappeared in Bolivia. The funniest thing is this guy here, Evo Morales, Lula's very close friend, was the guy who seized Petrobras refineries there in 2006. I made a video about this yesterday, right? People still say no, because it's fake news, no. Bolivia didn't seize Petrobras refineries. No, the Petrobras stations, no. Yes, they did. It was true. This is true. All the fake news outlets in Brazil lie when they say it wasn't that. Petrobras invested $1.5 billion in those Petrobras refineries there in Bolivia. Received as payment $112 million, a pittance, received pocket change, which Lula accepted that Evo Morales would pay him, just to say it wasn't a seizure. It was just to say he sold the refinery. And again, sales don't work like that. When you sell something, you contact the person who's buying. Ah, you agree? I agree such amount, that's it, all right. Then after the money here's the thing I sold you. Right? That's how sales work. How did it happen with the Petrobras refinery? Evo Morales invaded the refinery, put a bunch of Bolivian army soldiers there, seized the refineries, then afterwards went to discuss the price with Lula. That's not buying and selling. That's not how a transaction works. That's theft. He stole Brazil's refineries. Evo Morales is this individual, and he was banned from running this year by Bolivia's Supreme Court. He's facing accusations of pedophilia and sexual harassment of children. Apparently, he was involved with a group of teenage girls who had sexual relations with him. He claimed it was acceptable because he's indigenous, that his ancestry is indigenous. Good grief, if I were indigenous, I would be out. What kind of absurdity is this, associating indigenous people with pedophilia and such thing? No, friend. Look, every human race has behaviors in the past that are deplorable. Everyone should reflect on the white race as well. White, black, everyone has bad things in their past. Fortunately, we have evolved and no longer practice these horrible behaviors. A guy saying, no, because I'm indigenous, so I can eat little children. Go to hell, right? You can't do that, damn it. And so the guy is being held accountable for that. He was banned from running there in Bolivia. So he suggested the no vote, just like MBL here in Brazil, right? Like MBL suggested the null vote. It turned out that the null vote had a tiny fraction in the end. It was nothing, right? The good news is that there are only 2 right-wing candidates in Bolivia's election. Now comes the bad news. The news isn't that good after all. Here are the results, at least at this moment when I'm recording the video, but it should be more or less this, okay? Because usually when you have these results, they're already well established, right? So in first place, let me get my face out of here. In first place, Rodrigo Paz, who is from the Christian Democratic Party, has 31% of the votes. In second place, there's Tudo Quiroga, and this guy here is really right-wing. The other guy who's truly right-wing is this Samuel Doria here, with 20%. These two here are genuinely right-wing. This guy here is right-wing, but he's PSDB right-wing. This guy here was part of the student movement during the military dictatorship in the 70s and was even exiled. You know Fernando Henrique Cardoso? That whole story about Fernando Henrique Cardoso. He was exiled, his parents were exiled, so he started out in the leftist resistance movement during the military dictatorship. Nowadays, he presents himself as right-wing, Christian Democratic movement, right? And he's the one who came out ahead in the voting, so that's the bad news. Apparently, we don't know how the runoff will go. The runoff is now a different election, right? In other words, it could be. Notice that the votes were well distributed, right? This guy here, Androncio, is the first leftist candidate who supports Evo Morales, this Androncio guy here. The second one is this Eduardo guy here. The others are center, right? So, in other words, all this group here, the right wing took the first 3 places. It wasn't just the top 2 positions, the top 3 positions all went to the right. The problem is that the guy who won, he's not really far right. He's PSDB right wing, PSD right wing. And that's when I tell you that's the problem with this whole situation. If you look at these people's records here they are. Notice that this Rodrigo Paz guy, who is this left-leaning PSDB candidate, had very little chance of winning. Look, it's that little green line there. Practically 0 chance of winning. Everyone was betting on the 2 right-wing candidates, who were Quiroga and Medina. And in the final days, things shifted dramatically here. Quiroga rose, Medina dropped, but both of these are truly right-wing. The little purple one here is Rodrigues, who is the best left-wing candidate. He dropped significantly now. This little green one here was the one who won, my friend. Look at that, this little green one here is leading. He beat everyone. Sure, there will still be a runoff. We don't know who will win the runoff, but this is getting a lot of attention. Many people are worried about fraud issues, but I don't know. It could be that this is exactly what happened. The third way candidate emerged here. The third way worked out here. The guy showed up there. Everyone is saying, are these two right-wing candidates? In theory, they're two right-wing candidates, but Quiroga is right-wing. He is Jorge Fernando Tuto Quiroga Ramirez. Born in Cochabamba, he is from the Nationalist Democratic Alliance. He was previously president of Bolivia, so he is the right-wing guy. This one here, Rodrigo Pérez Pereira, is the other guy who actually won, came out ahead in this election. He's the green one who came out ahead in the end. Here he is from the revolutionary left movement. He was the founder and leader. His father was the founder and leader of the revolutionary left movement. And he became president or vice president. I'm not sure exactly. This guy was exiled. His family was exiled during the military dictatorship, meaning he claims to be right-wing, a conservative Christian, and I say I'm worried about this kind of thing. I hope he's truly right-wing. Indeed, but everything is pointing toward him winning this election. Let's see how the runoff will go. The runoff is another election. We don't know how the votes from the other candidates will be distributed. But Quiroga is truly right-wing. Rodrigo Pérez, I'm not sure about him, you know. We'll see how it goes. Look at another curious thing here. The channels, the left-wing bloggers here in Brazil are reporting that the right advances to the runoff in Bolivia's elections. Rodrigo Pérez and Jorge Quiroga, almost as if celebrating this because it would have been even worse. It would have been Quiroga and Doria, who are both right-wing, but it was Quiroga and Pérez. Pérez is right-wing, but not that extreme kind of right-wing. Let's see how this whole thing turns out. Hopefully it will end well. The runoff, the second round, is in October. The second round will be held this October. And that's another problem, the other bad news coming from this situation. Whoever wins, whether it's Rodrigo Pérez or Quiroga, the fact is that Bolivia's economy is destroyed. The right is favored, but the economic crisis is driving change. What I'm telling you is what we predict will happen in Brazil next year. The socialist movement leaves the country in ruins and nearly broken, completely bankrupted. International dollar reserves reached $15 billion in 2014. Today they have less than $2 billion. The country has no dollars to buy anything, to buy fuel. Everything is broken. They can't make deals with anyone because nobody trusts the Bolivian government. Because it's a government that disrespected private property, that invaded things, and who knows what else. So regardless of which right-wing candidate wins in the end, whether they're truly right-wing or not, who knows, maybe the guy will surprise us and actually be truly right-wing, right? Regardless of who wins, you're going to face an enormous challenge. Notice how this is very similar to what we imagine for Brazil in 2026, with Lula completely destroying Brazil. I hope Bolsonaro will be a candidate in 2026. I think that's the right thing, but regardless of that, whoever wins in 2026 will find Brazil, a country broken by Lula's economic policies, by the foolishness of these people who insisted on this senseless movement, this macabre ideology of socialism. Click the Become a Member button below to learn about the conditions and benefits of sponsoring the channel. For more information about our project, visit our websites shown on screen